Kathy, we are now live.
Okay, great. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the participants. Welcome to all my panelists and co-moderators. Uh, Matru Devo Bhava, which means be one of whom the mother is God. We all know that nature is full of maternal love, and hence we refer to nature as Mother Earth because its nature is to give, give, and only give. Our planet is an amazing place to live, but it needs our help to thrive, isn't it? That's why to remind that every year we celebrate Earth's Day on every April 22nd to at least introspect, if nothing else, as to how much efforts we are taking. Are they enough to protect our Mother Earth from all the phenomena that are adversely impacting the basic survival itself of every human being and other species? And we are celebrating this by introducing some sensitive issues which are interlinked to the sustainability development goals. Yes, I'm referring to climate change action and gender equality. At the same time, lagging behind in one goal of sustainable development and trying to foster the other one is not going to make any good. So today's discussion is expected to be on climate for women on the cross-cutting theme of gender equality and sustainability. As you all know, Dais is leading this initiative of running a Young Leaders Program for Climate Action Fellowship with many other partners. It is a beautiful program introducing the very concept of climate action and how young people can make a difference. It also has a focused engagement on the track elected by participants themselves. Well, before we get into our today's discussion, it would be important to introduce Ms. Debapriya Dutt, who is the Senior Manager Outreach, Earth Day Network. And she is leading the Great Global Cleanup, Artists for Earth, all these programs. She has successfully led many major initiatives. In all of these, for example, Great Global Cleanup Heroes campaign that focuses on environmental actions by individuals or groups, Earth Speaks, Are We Listening, and other initiatives. Before joining Earth Day Network, Debapriya worked for several NGOs, and that's how she has rich experience in how the climate action and gender equality goes hand in hand. Their development and growth also goes hand in hand. Without wasting any minute, I would request Debapriya to give her introductory remarks on this session. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Hello, everybody. A very good afternoon, morning, depending on wherever you are in the world. And I take this opportunity to wish all of you a very happy Earth Day in the spirit of every day is Earth Day. So I am Debapriya Dutt. I am from earthday.org. Growing out of the first Earth Day in 1970, earthday.org is the world's largest recruiter to the environmental movement, working with more than 150,000 partners in over 192 countries to drive positive action for our climate. Earth Day is on April 22nd, as we are all aware of, and this year's theme is Invest in Our Planet. So regardless of how you choose to invest, there's never been a more important time to celebrate this holiday. As humans run short on time to curb climate change and prevent catastrophic calamity, it's important for everyone to take serious, bold actions towards a sustainable future. So what we believe in is the fact that it's high time that we need to act boldly, innovate broadly, and implement equitably. It's going to take all of us, really. All of us have to be in this. Businesses, governments, and citizens, we all have to come together because everybody is accounted for and everyone is accountable at the same time. So this is a partnership for the planet. With that in mind, I'm very happy and so privileged to be here today for such a special theme. And I will take this opportunity to talk about the Star Women's Group Award, which was launched on April 8, 2020. So on the 8th of every month, earthday.org India organizes and recognizes a small women's group, one with not more than 1,000 members, that earns from an environment-friendly initiative. So we have been awarding a group which has done exemplary work every month on the 8th, because we began on Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March. And this is, again, another perfect example of investing in our planet. So I'm so happy to see some of our Star Women's Group awardees have joined us today. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us for this. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the lovely work that we do as part of EarthDay.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Devapriya, for your insightful remarks. And on that beautiful note, let us begin today's event. We welcome you all to the first dialogue of the Inspiring Women Dialogue series, Climate4Women, hosted by the Dais in association with Earth Day Network India and Tears of the Earth. The event's vision aligns with the theme of UN Women International Women's Day, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. The theme is the need of the hour, since we need to invest in our planet here and now without leaving anyone behind. And the objective is to recognize the significance of contribution of women around the world in leading the change on climate change adaptation, mitigation and response, and to build a more sustainable future for all. Kathy, over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Absolutely, Sakshi, I cannot agree more. Gender inequality coupled with climate crisis is one of the greatest challenges of our times. We all acknowledge it. It poses a serious threat to ways of life, livelihood, health, safety, and security of women and girls around the world. Climate change is a threat multiplier, as we say. As climate change drives conflict across the world, women and girls face increased vulnerabilities to all forms of gender-based violence, including conflict related to sexual violence, human trafficking, child marriage, etc. As a global challenge of 21st century, it is to advance gender equality in the context of climate crisis, as climate change and sustainability will continue to have lasting effect and impact on our environment and economic and social development.
Yes, exactly. And this is to, therefore, we are here to understand from our panelists of how to create a roadmap to synchronize climate action with gender equality and inclusivity. So sit tight, because in this 1-hour webinar, we are going to explore these interlinks between gender and climate and learn about the milestones of women on whose footsteps we shall take after to continue building a sustainable world. Before moving forward, let me take a moment to introduce my co-moderator, Khyati Amlani, who has been incredible in every way and helped us to materialize today's event. So Khyati is working at the Big Cello Private Limited as a legal counsel, holding a Bachelor of Law degree from the Government Law College, Mumbai, Master of Law degree from Mumbai University, and Masters in Business Law from National Law School, Bengaluru. She has over 14 years of amazing experience in FMCG and service industry. She is also Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Regional Ally at Big Cello, and her interest in inclusion brings Khyati here today in this event. Thank you so much, Khyati, for your amazing support.
Thank you, Sakshi, and it would be unfair if I do not introduce my co-moderator as well. Sakshi is a Japanese government scholar pursuing an undergraduate degree in the major of Community and Regional Policy Studies at Ritsumeikan University, Osaka. Studying an interdisciplinary course on social research, her research interest lies in the domain of sustainability and gender studies. She has approached her interests by working on SDG-related projects and is leading this project, Inspiring Women's Dialogue series. She aims to grow her knowledge and translate it into policy action in the domain of social welfare. Let me tell Sakshi, if we have young Turks like you in our system, then I think we can fast track this entire thing very nicely. Having said that, let us now focus on the panelists and what kind of strong panel we have. Over to you, Sakshi.
Right. First, we have Miss Jasmine Jones. Jasmine is a development expert working in the education sector for over 13 years now. And her expertise is in the field of youth and women development. Her work involves working at the grassroots with different communities across India through life skill training and facilitating workshops and dialogues, which would help them to become empowered and aware individuals. Welcome, Jasmine. And now over to you, Khyati.
Our next panelist is Ms. Anita Paul. Anita Paul is the co-founder and director of Pan-Himalayan Grassroots Development Foundation, a voluntary organization that spearheads sustainable mountain development initiative in Indian Himalayan region. Through her organization, she has promoted Mahila Umang Producers Company with around 2,000 marginalized women farmers as shareholders engaged in sustainable livelihood improvement efforts. A trustee of International Association for Community Development, Ms. Paul is actively engaged in championing for mountains as an important ecosystem with focus specifically on gender inclusive policies for sustainable development. And not to forget, Anita has been the Earth Day Network Star Women Group awardee. Heartiest congratulations for that, Anita. Well deserved.
Yes, congratulations, Ms. Paul. Next up, we have Ms. Mansha Tejpal, who is the research and technical lead at the Indian Biogas Association. A passionate environmentalist, she's working hard to promote the establishment of sustainable and clean energy in the industrial and transportation sector, and even organic manure for soil conditioning. She holds a master's degree in energy systems from University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun, as well as a PG diploma in environmental management. We are really happy to have you, Mansha, here.
Next, we have Ms. Nida Jamal. She is a young postgraduate in environmental, health science, and management studies, and she has a strong hold in botany. She is currently working as a program manager at Tears of Earth organization, leading the Sustainosphere initiative. Ms. Nida has developed and executed several projects like the Green Switch and worked on climate bathtub problem, outreach with Dr. Sailesh Rao. During her master's, she has worked on a very unique project called Comparative Study and Analysis of Plastic-Eating Bacteria from various sites in Delhi, which piqued her interest in solid waste management and climate change communication. I welcome one and all the panelists, and we are really graced by your presence. Thank you so much.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah. So now let us begin with the panel discussion. We all know that climate action and gender equality are both part of SDG Goals 2030. So very simple question before we dive into the subject. How are they interconnected, or rather interwoven? How are climate change and gender equality related? Can any one of you educate us on that?
So shall I go first?
Yes, Nida, please.
Yeah, so really honing in this conversation about like climate change and gender equality, because in society we do have this hierarchy and stratification. So naturally, climate change is not going to affect everybody equally, and people at the bottom are going to naturally bear the brunt of climate change. So for me, like providing solution for climate change, at the core of it, we need to like provide a foundation for protection of people, like ensure that we provide like basic food, shelters, jobs, and giving them like the necessary tools in order to like survive through this a major crisis that we are confronting. And also I think for climate solution to work, we need to have very strong environmental justice, so they go hand in hand. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much, Nida, for that. And with that, I think my next question would be for Ms. Paul. When we hear, what does it mean when we hear climate change is not gender neutral? So how is gender interlinked to a problem which apparently is impacting everyone on this earth?
So good afternoon to all, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. Happy Earth Day too. So that's a very good question. The fact that climate change actually is an undeclared war on humanity, right? So yes, and it's also a known fact that it's not gender neutral, simply because there are some gender inequalities that are already existing and we are all well aware of. So because of that gender inequality, which is already existing in society, it's a given that the impacts of climate change would also perhaps be unequal, because women as the caretakers or as the custodians, I'm not saying the sole custodians, but the major custodians of natural resources, whether it is biodiversity, water, farming systems, what have you, we have played a major role in its conservation and on its and hence we have because of those impacts, because of climate change emergencies, the desertification and of land and availability of natural resources like drying up of water resources has played a major role for women, right? And as caretakers and as and it's also a fact that probably the largest sector, which is agriculture, is going to be one of the major domains which are going to be impacted by climate emergencies and hence impact food security and nutrition also. It's also a given fact that while the women farmers are invisible, but the fact is that they play a major role. Almost 70% of activities or agricultural related work is done by women farmers, and they have no resources, so to say, at their disposal. So, because of all these inequalities which are already there in society, it's bound to be that the gender climate impacts are not going to be gender neutral, So essentially, it's because of this. And it's also known that 70% of the world poor are also considered to be women, So with nothing at her disposal, with her playing a major role as a custodian and as a caregiver, and also it's a known that her voice is not so well visible in the governance structure of the world, yet it's also a very interesting time that we are all living in, because it's for the first time in history of mankind that we have millions of women who are well informed, who are well educated, and not alone. We are not alone in this whole game. We have been helped by our men, by our sons and our grandsons, and that's why it's also very sometimes said it's the time for the grandmothers of this earth to now take this whole journey forward, So I think it's an interesting time, challenging time, yes, not just for women, for mankind, and we have a role to play, and we need to come up like all the young activists like we have on this panel. It's time to move ahead and nurture Earth as we should.
Thank you so much, Ms. Paul. And if I can just take a moment to bring an analogy to what you said, it means that we are waging the same storm. We are in the same storm, but we are actually on different boats. We are not on the same boat. And the boat women are on is kind of broken and will drown first, if not fixed, right? So that gender bias is the broken boat we are talking about. So bringing in just quickly Jasmine to this conversation. Jasmine, you have extensively worked in the field of education and awareness on climate change. We would like to understand as to how the existing gender bias decelerates this climate action movement.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. And I think Ms. Paul had some very good points raised in this regard also. So, if I talk about my experience, I believe when it comes to gender biasness, it kind of affects the adaptive capacity of the women who play an essential role as a caregiver. So when their when their adaptive capacity is affected, it invariably affects the family and the community at large as well. If you look at the global statistics, it is throughout history or through the various movements, it is seen that women play an active role, or let's say an active agents of conservation and restoration. So definitely, when there is existing gender biasness, it has a major impact on the way the climate actions have to be worked, or when we talk about, because it limits their opportunities to decision making process, and also the resources at hand. I was reading somewhere now, if I talk about gender biasness, because of the lack of education and lack of awareness, there is it reflects into climate actions, and the climate change leads to a lot of gender based violence. If I talk about instances, some months back I was watching this video about how climate change in Kabul is affecting the agriculture, and due to which young girls are being sold at the price which will cost you less than a bag of peanuts. That is the situation that we are facing right now. And I don't know, I still cannot get over that video even today, because I feel when we it's been years and years that we have been talking about climate action, years and years we've been talking about gender aspects, but there is a failure on every level to see the equation between climate change and gender equality. Right now, a few of us sitting over here do understand the importance because we are working hands on. But if you ask at the community level, or if you ask at the even the government level or the institutions who are involved, there is a lack of sensitivity to this issue, and to the fact that there is gender based violence in every form, be it human trafficking, be it the sexual violence, because there is a climate change as well. So apart from that, personally, recently I also had another experience where after my delivery 2 months back, we hired a woman to take care of the household work, because my mother was not well to keep up with all the things, so we hired her. Now this lady, she belongs to a small remote village in Jharkhand, and she's one of the tribal women. The reason we found her was because the one who referred to us, he said their agriculture was affected very badly due to climate change this time, and as such the land holding they had, her husband's brother, so her brother-in-law apparently had the higher share, so they were left with peanuts, and she was driven out of her home to go into the city and search for work. Now this is a lady who's left behind her family, first time stepped out of her house, come into a big city like Delhi. You won't believe it. I mean, it's been almost 2 months right now. We still find her agonizing and having that pain of leaving behind her family and coming over here. And the slightest mention of her son or the slightest mention of her family brings her to tears. And that is when I realized that, sometimes we too fail to see how strongly climate change can affect gender equations. But I think the most vulnerable group, that is the women or the young girls, have to bear the brunt of climate change, and if we don't take actions now, I think this is going to accelerate further and further and lead to many other problems. So that is why I believe that closing gender gaps and ensuring that gender biasness are removed will help in the long run for preservation, conservation, and be helpful in climate, in effective climate action programs.
Jasmine, just to add up to what you said, I stay in Mumbai, and this is my general observation that the maids who come to work at our home, they are not poor actually. They have big chunks of land in villages. But what I understand from them is that once they have harvested the crops once, because of the condition of the land and soil, they have to give it time to recoup. And hence, during that patch of time, they need to be employed, and hence they come here to earn. So of course I believe, and I'm somewhere I am sure that perhaps because of climate change, the land has become such that they are not in a position to continue their livelihood from farming, and they have to find the other avenues. So definitely gender inequality, if continued and no support is received, perhaps the climate action and gender inequality both will impact the overall sustainability development goals achievement. To continue from there, Nida, I would like to have some insights from you. You have executed many relevant and meaningful projects as far as today's discussion and context is concerned. According to you, what are the challenges that a woman face in advancing towards a sustainable lifestyle overall?
Thank you, Khyati. I would like to talk about this issue pertaining to the topic of sustainable menstrual practices that we are trying to inculcate in 2 villages. So basically, this is my experience that I think there is still a lot of social stigma associated with topics like menstruation, reproductive health, sexual rights, things like that. And there are a lot of myths that that we address obviously there about the topic of women's reproductive health. And that is also because I think because lack of foundational education, which is lacking. And as Jasmine mentioned previously, that we still have a lot of work to be done in area of education, especially with local communities and awareness, and just think in long-term perspective, because these issues are going to take time, and I think we need to give it that time to sort of provide that solution and that long-term perspective on the issue. And I also read this study wherein, in terms of sanitary waste or solid waste that I'm talking about, there is still a lot of rural areas where they don't have infrastructures provided for waste segregation or disposal, due to which even people who know about it, they are not able to access these facilities, and then we are just back to square one and zero. Because even if we have the knowledge, we don't have the infrastructure. So really, basically, I think we need to, especially India needs to, this is my perspective, that radically needs to focus on primary and secondary education for all. And this is a must, because we are a vast country with so much diversity. And there are a lot of challenges that we are facing. So maybe identifying different region in our own communities that we can actively work with and communicate with, and also engaging women and giving them opportunities and resources to as to with respect to their male counterparts, as Mrs. Anita Paul was mentioning about the agricultures, rather than because of women being bogged down by role of a provider of manager of household, providing care for the family, there is lack of optimization from their part. So rather than just we could have optimized their opportunities by giving them enough tools to education. And I think this will take a lifelong continuous sensitization and education. So these are the few challenges that I have identified while working with local communities. Yeah.
Sure, Nida. And my observation here is that I think government, if with the help of technology, the government has been taking initiatives where at different levels, by using different platforms, it is able to spread the initiative of engaging with the public directly. For example, now they are coming up with this whole point of not having toilets in the villages where the women have to go out. I mean, this is a very, very basic human right, fundamental right, a hygienic issue, which everyone is entitled to. But still, due to lack of facilities, women have to face it, and they are embarrassed, but they have no option but to go on with the lifestyle. So the government, I can see that the government is taking initiative. Maybe the question is, what is the pace at which it is going, and what is the target, or what is the deadline by which they are seeing that the basic facilities are given to women. Same goes with sanitary napkins, or of course the some kind of shyness in talking about sex education. So many things are interwoven, and we'll be talking about this in detail, specifically from the lens of seeing the urban and rural differences in terms of getting accessibility. Coming to Mansha. Mansha, I saw your profile. It's very unique and interesting. You come from energy sector. So the energy industry remains one of the least gender diverse, is my understanding, from whatever I read. Currently, the renewable energy sector, in this sector, women account for around 32% of workforce globally. And this also includes 45% working in administrative positions and just 28 in STEM related roles. You have closely studied this sector, I believe. So it would be great to hear from you. How does the energy sector contribute to climate change?
Thank you so much. This indeed is a very, very interesting question, and I'm extremely happy to be here. So thank you so much. So when we talk about energy sector, this sector has got like so many developments, recent developments that have been happening as far as the climate change part is concerned, because you talk about any sector, you know, let it be transport sector or industrial sector, or let it be domestic sector, power generation, transmission, distribution sector. All these sectors are governed by, you know, the main energy, because energy is required for, let it be any operations or any sector. So basically, you know, the launch of electric vehicles and the latest advancements which are happening, especially on the generation side, especially using your solar energy, wind energy, using biomass energy. So utilizing all the naturally available resources that we are having, we are trying to tap on the existing reserves and trying to produce electricity out of renewable sources. Now, I mean, the best part is that almost a decade back, none of us ever thought that this is going to get stiff competition to the existing non-renewable sources of energies that are there. But now it has come to a reality, and that is such a welcoming thing. If you look at the per unit cost of production that happens from a solar power plant, and you look at the per unit cost of production that happens from a thermal power plant, there's not much of a difference. But if you look at the emission level, there's a lot of difference. So this is a welcoming move that has happened. What I mean to say is that things are definitely moving in the most positive direction as we can think. Even during the past few decades, past couple of decades, I would say lots and lots of developments have happened. Now, having said that, what is the exact role of women when it comes to the power sector or the energy sector? Now, specifically talking about the biomass sector, I'll just take the example of biomass sector because that is the most easiest one to relate to. So since I've been associated with the sector, I understand that women play such a substantial role when it comes to feedstock aggregation side and setting up the entire supply chain for proper functioning of the bio-CBG plant. So, but what we have observed is that they are facing so many challenges and so many problems when it comes to their operational efficiency. Because the thing is that there is a general consensus among the society that females are supposed to be the homemakers. They're supposed to look after the kids. They're supposed to, you know, provide to their husbands, to their sons, to everybody. Now they have family responsibilities. They have to abide by that. That's there. Men are free to work. They don't have any family responsibility as such. They do not have to worry about any of the household activities that are going on. Females, on the other hand, have to manage the household. They have the mandate to go to work on time. They have all the safety and security concerns because unfortunately, whatever power plants, consider it any power plant, you know, let it be solar or let it be a biogas power plant. These are mostly located at deserted locations. So it becomes very, very difficult for the females to commute on a daily basis, you know, from her house to the project site. So recently, certain project developers have come up with some developing measures and very, very welcoming ones, that they have provided transportation facilities, especially for their women staff. Now, this is one of the welcoming measures which should be replicated on a bigger scale. Another thing, which is like, which you mentioned, Ms. Khyati, that a provision of restrooms and provision of resting areas. Now, again, I'm coming to the project site. A lady, for example, if I want to go to the project site, if I want to go and monitor how my project is doing, I would obviously stay there sometimes for the entire day, sometimes if need be for 2-3 days, or maybe for a week. Now, I need proper resting area. I need separate washrooms. I need to be sure about my safety and security, because, these deserted areas and all, during nighttime, you can imagine if they get to know that a woman is there all alone, deserted. So it's definitely not safe. So what measures is our government taking, or what measures are the corresponding state nodal agencies, which are actually responsible for the implementation of the policies for almost all the renewable energy projects? What are they taking? And as far as the individual project owners are concerned, what individual, you can say, measures are they taking, so as to, give that confidence to women that, okay, come work with us, we'll take care of you. So these are certain things which are very, very important. See, government is providing all sorts of, you can say, subsidies, tax holidays, renewable purchase obligations, and all other sorts of things to give a boost to the sector. But my small suggestion to government of India is, and we have actually written about this and everything, that, if something like gender-based, some incentive could be provided, that if a female entrepreneur is trying to venture into the sector, then maybe 5% extra subsidy, 5% extra tax holiday, 5% extra something could be provided, because this in turn will give a lot of push to a lot of women who are trying to venture into the sector, but who are trying to break the ice. They just want to come out of everything, and they just want to do something good for the society, for the environment as a whole, because energy sector single-handedly is playing the biggest role as far as climate change mitigation is concerned. Now, whatever clean energy projects we set up, on one hand, we are reducing your dependency on fuel imports. This is one of the major things. On the other hand, we are going to reduce the emissions, and we are doing that. Okay, coupled with this, whatever emissions are getting reduced, whatever benefit we are getting, we can translate this into monetary terms as well through trading of carbon credits. So even the project developer, he's getting a twofold benefit. He's getting clapped by the society that, wow, this guy has come up with a clean energy project, and that environment is going to get clean. On the other hand, he is going to avail carbon credits, so his bank account will be very, very happy. So it's a double benefit. But what is the role of women, and how far have the women contributed to it? Now, a typical power sector has got three aspects: generation, transmission, and then distribution, or end usage as we call it. When we switch on an AC, okay, the cool breeze that we get is enjoyed by everyone who's sitting in the room, right? So as far as the end usage is concerned, there is no disparity, there is no gender gap. But as far as the generation side is concerned, when we are producing the electricity, if you look at a typical power plant, you will find hardly 10% of the female staff there. And that is the most astonishing part, for 2 or 3 major reasons. First is safety and security, since the plants are at deserted locations. Second is the availability of restrooms or appropriate washrooms. And there are a couple of other reasons, and you'll be surprised to know that there is a lot of pay disparity. As compared to whatever salary is being given to the male counterparts, the same salary is not enjoyed by the females. And just because they are females, just because they are assumed to not, be as smart as their male counterparts.
Yeah, I just would like to add, Mansha, perhaps as the government has been regularly increasing the minimum wages, so perhaps the corporates are smart enough to ensure that the wages are above that. But when it comes to giving over and above that, perhaps this pay parity is a concern.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because this is what I've been into the corporate sector since more than a decade. So this is what I have realized that unfortunately, same position, same everything, but the male counterpart will enjoy a better salary as compared to the female. So this is a bitter truth that we all, although situations, again, it depends from organization to organization. It depends on the, management's perspective, what they want and what they think. Fortunately, our organization is really, progressive and all. So I'm very happy about that, but not all organizations are. So I'm just talking about a general perspective, but these things are existing and these things need to be taken care of. Because, a girl who has got family responsibilities as well, and who's, struggling with a lot of issues, she has kids, then she has, maybe her in-laws and everything. She is trying to manage everything and then come for work and giving her full productivity towards work. So she definitely deserves, if not better than same salary. So this is one of the reasons. Then another important, criteria which I have come across is training and capacity building. Now, training and capacity building is something which really needs to be stressed upon when it comes to women. What I'm trying to say is that these things are coming up in a big way, and these things need to be promoted even more, especially when we talk about power sector. We do not have much of a skilled workforce when it comes to women. If you look at the percentage of engineers, yes, we have decent number of female engineers, but what about project specific training? What about project specific capacity building? That needs to be taken care of. Then, as I said, if government comes up with a simple initiative of giving gender-based incentive, initially just to give a boost, then more female entrepreneurs are going to enter into the sector. And guess what? If they get a special kind of an incentive, then even their male counterparts, maybe their husbands or fathers or brothers or whosoever, they will push them. Okay, you're getting this deal better, you go and do it. So, because our society, unfortunately, understands everything in terms of financial perspective. So unless and until they do not get that laddu to be seen, so they do not feel motivated. This is how we say that. So we have to, show them that laddu.
Absolutely.
So as to uplift the condition of the women.
Just to add here, Mansha,
yeah.
And then I'll hand over to Sakshi.
Yeah.
But one point that again, you need to understand that where you are giving, at which level you're giving. If you're giving it at laborer's end, another pessimistic view is that, great, my wife is earning more than me and I can spend on liquor half of my day. So awareness and maturity are two things which need to come hand in hand for males to be equally prepared, that she is not earning for my liquor, she is earning so we can live a good standard of living.
Absolutely. So what the kind of incentives we're talking about come to the project promoter. So instead of a male project promoter, if a female is trying to venture into the power sector, then she should be enjoying a little more benefit as compared to the male counterpart. So when we talk about the elite class, or when we talk, because that female, if she's at a position, she'll be able to hire more females under her. She'll be able to understand from a female perspective what are the problems and the challenges that are being faced by a particular female when she comes to work. So probably she will be able to make the condition conducive enough for the female workforce to work effectively and efficiently. Sure. So these are some of the measures which could be taken up.
Sure. Thanks, Mansha.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mansha, and thank you for bringing up the issues of gender roles and how they play a major role in female workforce. Yeah, and quickly coming to the next question, we have all talked about education sector and energy sector extensively. Now, women in agriculture are overrepresented. They constitute about 71% of the workforce. So now this question is for Ms. Paul because she has had an extensive experience of working for the marginalized women in Himalayas. So Ms. Paul, how have you seen any gender bias in the agrarian industry? And what is the impact in the overall ecosystem?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge, as I mentioned earlier, that while we do 70% or more of the agricultural operations, but as far as accessing markets is concerned, it is, there has been a change, but I can just say that the process of change or the pace of change is limited. In the sense, markets do not come to remote areas, it's people the farmers or women especially that need to go and access markets. And some of the concerns which have been raised earlier in terms of lack of infrastructure is true for even for agriculture too. Whether we go to mandis or we go to nearby towns, that burden still is there on women. Now, even if you look at the new government policy of farmer producer organizations, and since I have been engaged in promoting one all-women farmer producer company, it's still very, very challenging, because less than 5% of the farmer producer organizations which have been formed as recently as a couple of years ago are women centric. It's in the sense it's not all women yet. And even if you don't talk about all women, you can talk about mixed farmer producer organizations. There is a huge need to engender the process, because the fact is that as time goes by, the burden of feeding the family is no longer now just male centered. Women are the bread earners, whether due to male migration or due to broken homes or whatever. The fact is, women will never let the kids go hungry. And if they have to engage with markets, then some policy initiatives looking into this whole thing of engendering the process, right from markets to technology to capacity building to knowledge to and technology in the widest sense, where services, where is also included, and it's not just machinery that you're talking about. It needs to be looked into now, as in the chat box we have been exchanging, because you're talking about 50% of humanity. And if you're not going to look at that, then it is really this whole SDG mission of not leaving anyone behind will only be a dream, right? But the fact also is, let's look at the brighter side of life too. The fact that we are talking on this panel, the fact that everybody is engaging on different, on almost all aspects, like Mansha said, from energy, which was to do with transportation. But we also have the other side where fossil fuel is still the major concern as domestic energy. And the burden of collecting that fossil fuel to cook is still on the women, right? So we do need to figure on that. Those disparities are also there. We have the government of India has launched Ghar Ghar, that's the cylinders for everybody. But the fact is, there is still much more that we can do. What about the renewables? What about, and can women play a role in that, especially when 70% of our country is agrarian? So, so all these issues and dialogues still need to be, we need to have it on a much larger scale, more often, so that we push for engaging for climate policy, which will feature and factor all these concerns which have been raised through this dialogue, also so that the women's concern, well, I'm not saying, it's basically just engendering that whole climate policy is also the need of the hour. And I'm sure as more and more people are going to be engaging, millions of us are educated. We are raising our voices. It will take a while still, I agree, as I think Neda was mentioning earlier. But the fact is, the journey has begun, right? And once you've unleashed that power and the journey has begun, it will reach a destination at some point or the other. So I'm sure that, yeah, I would just like to leave it on a happy note that we are there, and what is the positive is men are there with us. Today the men are standing. Okay, there is a whole segment which is still we need to address, but let's look at the glass as not just half empty, as half full. They're standing with us. And it's a positive on that note. And now we need to get our act together and come up front and take on the leadership roles that we need going forward.
You're absolutely right, Anita. In fact, the sense of awareness in itself is a stepping stone to the projects or to the initiatives where we want to see a happy ending. So in that context, Jasmine, my next question is to you. we are talking about spreading awareness. We are talking about creating education for people to understand that we will have to break the gender bias. In that this context, I wanted to understand, is really education helping in getting the enlightenments and things to really become visible? And if yes, then how much efforts are required, and how cost effective, how um, approachable it is for us to cover as a much crowd as possible? How is it working? You have been in this sector, education sector.
Thank you, Kathy, for that question. And I think listening to all my co-panelists, one thing I realized, and also I was reading a recent report by UNICEF, and it clearly mentions that when we have gender equitable education system, it empower girls. You know, it empowers the young minds, not only just girls but also boys, particularly girls, because they are the one who most of them miss the critical life skill for critical thinking. So when it is in today's time, it has become all the more essential that they are educated and empowered, because it helps them to exercise their rights and also participate in the socio-economic welfare, beginning from their family. Now when their family is aware and they have kind of enlightenment in themselves, it also affects their standing in the community. You know, how do they how do they access to resources, be it in terms of education or employment opportunities, what is right for them, what is wrong for them. The same can be exercised towards their family as well. And if I try to connect it to gender and climate change, again I come back to the point, unless and until you know what is happening, you're not aware, you don't have an I mean, you're sitting in the let's say the world of your own, it becomes very very difficult to realize the impact. Everywhere, from Mansha to Miss Paul, everyone mentioned, from agricultural sector to the energy sector, everywhere the kind of gender pay, be it the wage gaps that we talk about, or the share of land holding that they have, or even if they work day in and day out, the kind of wages they should be getting, it's something that they cannot negotiate, because they're not empowered, and the reason for not being empowered is the lack of education that they are facing right now. I'll give a very small example. In one of the villages that we were working in, this whole initiative that was taken up by the government regarding waste segregation came in. And so when we were explaining to them why it is important to segregate the waste, and how, why, because what they would do is they would end up burning. So from sanitary napkins to other items, they would just put a fire to it and start burning it. Now that led to a lot of situations in their houses, health situations, not only for themselves, but even if the pregnant woman was doing it, the child in her womb would be affected. If she was a mother who was undergoing postnatal care, again the child would be affected. And this is often seen that she would prioritize others health compared to compared to her own health. Now everything from health to food consumption to other aspects is invariably related to how informed she is about the choices that she can make in life. So I think in all these aspects, if you look at it, education not just achieving a mere degree or completing a school, but education in all aspects of being an informed individual who can make the right choices and who can critically think of what is going to be the best solution, not only for herself, but also for the family at large and the community that comes into play. So I think that is why I feel that when we talk about anyone talks about gender equality or inequality in any aspect that comes in, the first solution would be to get the women or the young girls educated, and help them understand what is right and what is wrong for them.
Sure. Thanks, Jasmine. That's true, actually. Together, in context of education, we will have to ensure that all across the field, all across the communities, genders. We'll have to cover right from the elderly group till the children, to ensure that the education is spreading. So from wherever the eye opening starts, it will help in creating awareness. Sakshi, I think we have had a wonderful discussion on specific questions. Maybe you can take up the gender question, which panelists can reply jointly or on their own.
Yes, yes. We had a very thorough discussion. Because of the time, we shall just move forward with a very simple questions, a final question to all our panelists. What does a gender inclusive policy look like? And let us just take this question one by one. So starting with Neda, what does gender inclusive policy, climate policy look like to you, Neda?
Thank you, Sakshi, for this question. In my understanding, gender inclusive policy will have public participation, and it will be a respectful policy to all the communities or people involved. It will be naturally inclusive. There will be diverse representation amongst policymaker and the voices of people that are like reflected and amplified through that policy. And also there will be a transparency in that policy for people to actually really engage with in conversation. So like impact, cause and effect impact relationship as well. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Neda, for the crisp and very clear answer. Now moving forward to Mansha. Mansha, what about you? Like, how can we synchronize climate action, gender equality, and how does a gender inclusive policy look like to you?
Thank you so much, Sakshi. So I think identification of the problem statement is a very basic and the first step you can think of. So whenever the problem statement is clear in front of us, we can take appropriate measures to address those problems. I'll give you a very simple example. Now there is an organization and they are actively working in the field of waste management, organic waste management, segregation of organic waste. Now what these guys are doing is that they are appointing couples. They recruit couples. Now why are they recruiting couples? Because as far as the segregation part is concerned, they feel that women can play a leading role in waste segregation because of the basic mindset that, they have been gifted from the Almighty. Naturally, women are very good with segregation and all these related activities. Whereas if you think about the male counterparts, they are more active towards the operational side. When you talk about the operational aspects of the power plants, they are well managed by their male counterparts. So that is why they have come up this policy to recruit couples wherein the female would be appointed in the segregation division and their male counterparts will be appointed towards the operational side. So their problem statement was very clear that most of the couples, they do not want to come back to working with them just because of the very fact that they are worried about their families. Ladies are worried as to who's going to take care of my child, who's going to cook for my husband, how am I going to manage both sides, work as well as home. This was problem number one. Problem number two was education of their children. Problem number three was safety and security of the female. Problem number four was that since the women are away, then men have to be on their own. So all these problems were collectively addressed by a very simple measure that they were allowed to live on site. A simple accommodation was being provided to them, and the education of the child was being taken care of by the project owner, the project management team. And since the departments were segregated, there was no interference, the output was maximum. And what we observed was that, initiatives like these help people to work with that particular organization for a very, very long time. People just don't want to leave because they're getting all the necessary facilities and they don't have any problem. They feel motivated because everything is being taken care of by them. On the other hand, the organization is making a lot of money because everything is organized for them. They don't have to run pillar to post to, just organize basic stuff and to recruit manpower and everything. So everything is sorted. What I'm trying to make a point here is that, initiatives like these need to come up. Now, these types of initiatives are taking place at the grassroots level. This is just one example that I'm giving. Similar examples have been replicating throughout the, you can say, country, I would say, because at different project locations, different other types of initiatives are being taken care of. Somebody's addressing safety and security of women. Someone is making a mandate that there should be a minimum percentage of women workforce that should be, included in the company manifesto, the company profile beforehand. So every year during the board meeting, final board meeting, this thing has been finalized that, okay, last year, the minimum percentage of women that is supposed to be there in the organization is, say, 30%. This year, it should be 35%. So like that. So because when I was working on a project, that was a study on a pan-India basis, what I realized was that it's not that people don't want to do, people are taking initiatives, but they're not getting that necessary push from the government side. When it comes to government, the government has set up the local custom hiring centers or the village level entrepreneurs, to help facilitate the local villagers and the rural people. And they provide necessary, information and education, and capacity building happens at a grassroots level. But they are not getting, again, those agencies which are set up by the government are not getting that necessary support from the government itself. Because whenever they go back to the government and they want to seek some kind of a support, they are not entertained the way they should be. So this is one gray area, I would say, to patch the gender disparity that we're talking about here, which needs to be accelerated in the sense that government needs to be on their toes. The relevant state nodal agencies and the other departments need to work in tandem with each other to implement the policies which are already in place. That is step number one. Enforcement of policies which are already in place. Formulation of new policies will be a second step. But first of all, whatever existing policies are there, which are favoring women and which are favoring overall community as a whole, need to be given a boost. And that can also, that can only happen by government's push. So these types of initiatives, plus whatever grassroots level initiatives are being taken up individually by the organizations, these need to be substantiated. And in the form of case studies, these should be actually circulated to other localities as well, so that same models can be replicated. And the benefit of these models could be actually reached out to a larger community. So these are like few of the initiatives which I can think of.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Mansha. And that's very
My
interesting
pleasure.
take.
Yeah.
Policymakers should be held accountable. Great. And now finally we have Miss Paul. Would you like to add on to this?
Yeah, I like what Mansha said. Firstly, yes, implement what is already in place, goes without saying. But going forward, because of climate emergencies, the thing is it has to be a holistic kind of approach where you can't look at just one thing. And this whole thing of nurturing Earth back, nurturing our environment, is because that is the web of life. We need to restore that whole bounty of nature. And in that whole process, women's concerns have to come center stage because of her belief that she will not always be extractive by nature, because those processes which are only focusing on extracting and extracting without renewing the natural resources, will probably, those voices need to be factored in. And because once we've done that and we've got that whole cycle of water, energy, your whole the mental well-being along with the health will all probably get restored. So that has to be at the core of the climate policy. And also the fact is that her concerns of her role in natural disaster management is another one which needs to be looked into, because it's something which we are facing in the past maybe decade, and the frequency of such natural disasters have increased over this thing, so but in the national disaster management policy, the team, the benefits, who will receive what, like in agriculture, she cannot get any subsidy because she cannot prove that land is on her name, so these kind of anomalies need to be looked at with the new lens, with the new vision, and and also allocate enough finances so that she can be her concerns and could be addressed also. So, looking at a whole holistic thing where, because the gender inclusiveness in its various forms of right from water to energy to livelihoods to environmental, the ecological concerns, it all needs to be looked at and give her that space so that her voices and her concerns comes center stage.
Thanks, Anita, for that insight. It was a great panel session, right from energy sector to talking about the sustainable lifestyle to education to agrarian industry. I would now call upon Keshav Gupta, the founder of the Dais, to give his remarks on the entire session.
Thank you so much, Kathy. So firstly, let me just wish everyone Happy Earth Day for this year. And uh, so we started the Earth Day celebration on the 22nd April, day one, with a high level panel discussion between different stakeholders on how to invest in our planet. And then yesterday we got youth from around the world, 15 of them, to work on a co-creation session, uh, uh, to explore ways in which they can act, lead, and there were several calls to action from that which also emerged. And today we have had this stellar discussion on the cross-cutting themes between gender and climate. And I feel that these 3 days, clubbed with the Earthpreneur Awards and several different celebrations that have happened, create a very important and I think a timely, relevant, imminent context for actually moving forward with actionable things uh, in light of what all we have heard today and over the past 2 days. So for that, let me first really wholeheartedly thank all our partners, especially Earth Day Network India team. Neela has been instrumental. Miss Neela Majumdar from the team has been instrumental along with Mr. Rumit Walia. We have Deba Priya and Miss Karuna also with us today. So it's really made this last concluding dialogue for us very special. I'd say that as an organization and as a team at the Dais, I have a very, very wonderful privilege to have so many women leaders in our group. We are I would say, 90% women-led organization. So we are very, very proud, and we see the instant benefits, the takeaways, everything that come out of it. So we strongly believe that actions are actions speak louder than words, as cliche as that is. So uh, so uh, and and I think most importantly, what I want to say today, when we say Earth Day is every day, what can be very important for those of us who are so passionate about these issues is align together more frequently, uh, and try to also now follow up and align our actions together. So maybe there can be things that we would love to definitely explore. I think moving ahead with the Earth Day team, with all our esteemed speakers, on what can be maybe the one small thing that we can take up to invest in our planet. And my concluding reflection, I think, on invest in our planet as the theme is that what I love about this idea is the word our in that we are recognizing that everyone has their space respectively. And I think that our also means embracing your own self to begin with when we say what is our. So it has space for everyone literally on the planet to act, and whether it's a small action or a big action, small impact or a big impact, I think every action counts, and every word counts. So just thank you to everybody who's been associated with the entire celebrations for 3 days. Earth Day Network India, Learning Planet, Tears of the Earth. All my colleagues, some of them are not on the screen, and there's a long list of them who made this possible. All our speakers from right from day one till today, moderators who have just been so gracious and stupendous with the preparations, So thank you, and this video and all the webinar, all these things, all the resources will be available in the coming days. We will be sharing them through, I think, the Earth Day Network, Dais, all of our networks as well. So thank you for making this Earth Day so special for all of us, and see you very soon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Keshav, for that. And it's been an honor and pleasure to be amongst such an amazing panel of women and to educate myself on such issues. So yeah, I really want to thank all the speakers for educating us. And just before leaving, I just want to say that we are not done talking about gender yet. And the Inspiring Women Dialogue series has just begun. So our next dialogue in line is Thinking Through Wellness, where we talk about the importance of being emotional, something that women are really identified to be. And it is often used against them, right? So here in this dialogue, we would be deconstructing the gender coding of emotions, and we'll talk about the significance of emotional and mental health. And I hope and I believe that that session is going to be as amazing as this session that we had today. And thank you so much for joining in, or to all the audience and panelists. And yes, and you can register the event through this. I'm just sending you the link on chat. And Kathy, over to you.
Thank you so much for being a wonderful co-moderator, Sakshi. So we, on behalf of our partners and entire team of Dais, Learning Planet, Earth Day, and Tears of Earth, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the panelists for gracing their presence and sharing their experiences and opinions today. We'll be heartily waiting for the next session, and I'm sure we all will be benefiting out of this entire series. Thank you so much for attending this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. That was wonderful.